Welcome to another live stream from Twisted Dice. I'm Darren. Thank you very much for all the awesome people that have been there waiting to join in. Had a couple of technical problems as always, but if it isn't technical and it isn't going faulty, then it wouldn't be me. So thank you very much for joining. So tonight I'm being joined by Tibbles, the evil cat, and for some reason you've disappeared off my screen.
Oh my god, can you at least hear me? Can you hear me? That's the main thing.
We can hear you. Hey Steve, thank you for joining us, my friend. Why is that done that? Okay, no worries. You've gone really, really small, or...
Yes, I've gone magically small. I've instantly gone tiny.
There you go.
It's one of my superpowers.
There you go.
Fixed. Hi, I'm Tibble's Evil Cat, or Sean, as a lot of people call me. So, thanks for having me, Darren. Appreciate it.
So, Sean himself, he's also a live streamer, and he's also a commission painter as well. So, if you're looking to get an army done, ready for a tournament, this is probably the man you want to speak to. If you want it done quick, to a nice tabletop standard, this is the man. And hopefully, he'll post some pictures up on the Twisted Dice Facebook group, so you can actually see what his work is, what he's capable of doing.
I get the subtle hint there. I get it.
Good. I'm glad you're getting the hint there, because that's how we want to go. So tonight we've got two things we're going to be talking about. Now, providing that we get the other boys are back from working time, we're going to talk about speed painting, what to do to get prepped for a big project. And then we're also going to talk a little bit later on tonight about tournaments. So we've got a Twisted Dice tournament coming up. So I'm going to do some updates on that. But we're also going to talk about what you need to do about thinking about prepping for tournaments coming up, etc. And we'll go from there. So let's talk, first of all, Sean, about you and what projects you've got on the table at the moment.
Well, commission-wise, I'm doing some Blood Angels Assault Intercessors. That was kind of coming. I think a lot of people are doing that. I'm not allowed to share it or tell who it is, so that's normally the key with half the commissions these days. But my own personal projects is I'm trying to make up some homemade versions of Primaris Librarians. So I've got an ex-chaplain from the Indomitus box and slapping bits on him. And then this guy is the Blade Guard Ancient, and I'm just slapping more bits on him. So that's my current projects. I've been playing around a lot with magnetizing and like kit bashing. I think the term's called kit bashing.
Good old kit bashing.
Yeah, gotta love those bits.
Yeah, so I haven't done something I haven't done for a while. The last one I've done was a Demon Prince, and I do miss it because you can get some. You know, it's something about doing something that you've done, you've built yourself or customized, so it's not the same as everyone else. Is pretty cool, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the models they bring out, they are amazing, absolutely amazing. They go together really nicely as well, but they also are in the same pose. So I've got like, I don't know, 15 of those intercessors going, pointing forwards because, you know, I'm a cheapskate. I buy stuff from eBays and bits like that.
No, you don't say things like that. You're not a cheapskate, are you, Sean?
No.
You're not cheap. You don't do things like that, do you? You know.
For my own stuff, I do, yes, but other people's stuff, they get whatever they want, really. If that's what you're angling towards, sorry. I need to clarify a bit more what I'm on about.
Yes. So we do also have Dan in there as well. So in your screen, you've probably got Dan floating in there somewhere, but in a sec, I'm going to get him in. So do apologise. So Dan, thank you very much for joining us. You're late.
Yes. Hello. There's a newborn around, so
no excuses, mate. No excuses. So what we're going to do, we're going to break this. So tonight we were originally going to go with, we was going to speak tournament, then we was going to do speed painting. So what we're going to do, we're going to do speed painting first, Dan, and then we're going to speak tournaments, and hopefully by then we'll have Franco joining us as well.
Yep.
So, Sean, what stuff do you do planning-wise before you start doing any of your speed painting?
First of all, organising and being prepared is like the main thing you want to be when you want to get stuff done quickly. I myself, I wish I was more prepared, but there's always work on that. But I think you need a good action plan. What you want to achieve in the realistic time frames. And sometimes that's a big learning curve with yourself anyway. So like, even if it is just assembling the models and base spraying in your first day, I think that's like one of the key things to give yourself realistic steps to stick to.
Yeah, you see, I've always found that when I am going to do any form of painting, not to bite off too much in one go. So, for instance, the last one I done was the Imperial Guard. Well, I'm still doing the Imperial Guard, but what I done was I kind of took off too much in one go, which was kind of a bit annoying because I kind of done all the tanks all in one hit, which was silly because the tanks looked cool as they were. I didn't need to muck around the way I did, but I did. And then what I found that happened was I do the. Oh, we've got music kicked in now. This is a great live stream. Right, turn that off. So we got so with regards with the tanks, started doing all the tanks, got them all the primary colours up to where I want them to be, and then I found that I wasn't happy with what I'd done as soon as I got like to the third or fourth, and it's like, oh, why'd you do that for? That's kind of a bit silly, and it was a shame really, but look, it is what it is, right?
That's the best thing about airbrushing though. It's such a thin coat, you can realistically go over it.
Yes, that's the beautiful thing about it. You can go back over it. Dan, what are you working on at the moment, my friend? We've got to get you up on the screen as well, because that's it'd be a shame not to have you on there.
So, any luck?
No, you go for it, dude. You go for it. You keep talking.
So I'm currently working on Chaos Space Marines. I'm planning to hopefully in the next couple of days to get some Terminators done. I've been testing out the paint scheme I sent to the chat a couple of days ago. It was different techniques on how to do the same sort of paint scheme. Because a friend of mine a few years ago showed me a different way of doing it. It seems to claim a crisper colour. I don't know why. It just does. It's I'll start off with sort of like a black undercoat, just do an etching, do like a very heavy, well not heavy, but watered down like etching grey as a base, and then you wash it with any 5 colours across the model. And then what you do then is that you dry brush it lead belcher, and then you can paint on top of them what colours what you want, and it sort of helps to bring the colour in a bit neater. So I'm hoping to have at least a couple of models so I can sort of put on the Facebook group and by the end of the weekend or early next week.
No, that'd be cool. Got a little bit of an echo from you, Dan.
Yeah, 2 seconds. I think it's probably the room I'm in.
Oh, we're getting a whole view of the room.
Won't be
well, you are, Sean, but the rest of the audience isn't at the moment, so unfortunately not. So, Sean, what tips could you give for speeding up your painting?
I mean, the painful truth about speeding up painting in general is practice, 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 and even more practice. I tried not to swear then. I did well.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep this a fun family show if we possibly can.
But there are some like tricks you can start doing. So, if you do have an airbrush, you can do a lot of your washes through the airbrush as well. So what I quite like to do is kind of do like 2 parts thinner, 1 part wash, and that tends to be kind of right from the stuff I'm doing, just right for doing kind of like pin washes. There's the method that I use heavily on a Imperial Guard commission where I had over 100 models of those tiny little models to do, and that was using kind of like, I think it's called the lambing medium kind of like a method, where you kind of like, once you get like you base color it 1 color, you do some where you spray from above the highlights.
You're talking about so you what you're saying is you're going in with a Zenith highlight for yours, yeah?
Zenith will highlight, yeah, that's perfect, yeah. So I don't know the terms, but I do it all the time. But so you do a zone 4 highlight. Then I tend to do kind of like use a very soft bristle brush, but like a heavy dry brush with a similar light color to bring out the edges. And then with your base colors, you mix it depending on the color, because some colors are stronger than others. You mix it back 50-50 with Lamian medium and the base color, and it kind of works like almost like a wash, but it's more like a stain. And that kind of gets a lot of models done in quick succession. You have a lot of the detailing pre-done for you. And a lot of the contrast paints from Games Workshop work in a very similar way. So
Okay.
I would suggest contrast paints for some bits. It doesn't work very well when it comes to big flat panels like Space Marines. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do a bit more old school methods in that regards.
Interesting, because like interested in the way you I'm really sorry, Dan, but I'm struggling to get you on the screen as well as Sean tonight. So
Okay, yeah.
you're going to have to be off. So we're going to have to. You're going to be like a face we see on the
Off-screen.
radio, but not on the.
That's fine. Is the sound a bit better?
Yes, that sounds okay. We've just got a little bit of reverberation off Sean, so I do apologise on that. For that, there's nothing I can do about that.
I got a really old PC and she's struggling.
It sounds it. So for myself, a couple of things that I would say, that when you're planning on doing any type of project, get an idea on what colours you want to go with first of all. Nothing worse than start getting in a project halfway through. So like you put your base coats down, you put your greens, you're going for that, but you don't know what your second colours are going to be. Don't leave it for chance. What I would probably recommend is getting yourself one of the colour wheels. You can get loads of colour wheels for free online, so there's loads of pictures, and it gives you an understanding on what colours work well with other colours, so like greens and purples, greens and whites, and you can kind of get a feel on what the colours are going to be before you actually put them onto the model itself. If you're painting by brush, you haven't got a lot of room for error, if that makes sense. So if you start applying the paint on and you make that wrong choice in the colour, because the layers, you start then losing the detail. So it's really, really important that you plan ahead on your colours. One bit of advice that I could give you would be to look upon getting yourself the like some plastic spoons or some old rhino parts or anything like that at all. With regards with the old rhino parts and things in that sense, what you could do is test up, spray paint the model, the base color first, and then you can just add those other colors in to see how those colors interact with the main colors you've chosen. That's absolutely crucial. If you're going with, let's say you're going with Space Marines and you want to go with Pacific Chapter, then it's kind of easy because you've already got the base colors already there planned out for yourself. So just following those base colors on how Games Workshop paint them, it kind of makes your life so much easier, and it will save you so much time as well. The last thing you want to do is go halfway through this and then decide that actually the colors that I've chosen is not really what I want to do. That absolutely kills the project straight up. Second tip I would give you is don't go too when you take a project, as I was saying earlier on, don't take too many models in one go. Do it in bite sizes. Don't try to waffle the whole thing down in one go, because it's going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to absolutely demoralize yourself. So for instance, I'd done 40 Necron Warriors a couple of weeks ago. I've been really, really slow because at the moment with the editing side, I'm trying to get battle report stuff. I've been a bit slow on the painting side, but that's something that I need to work upon and get that up. So I'm going to do some painting guides or speed painting on how to get certain armies up really, really quick to a nice standard. So where I'd done those 40 Necron Warriors straight off on the bounce, it was kind of like I took on too much too quick, and I found that I was getting really damn bored of painting the same thing over and over again. However, you can do them a lot quicker, no shadow of a doubt. So as you've got the airbrush loaded up, I could do the silvers so much quicker, but it's damn boring, and that's the problem you have. The second thing is, as I said before, that when you start painting up batch models, if you make a mistake with the color choice, then you kind of have this thing where you have to go back through the whole damn lot to recreate that thing. So first things up, probably best doing is maybe trying it on a couple of models first of all. Make sure you're happy with that color scheme, the way you're painting it, and then reproduce it that way. So if you are going to go batch, just do a couple first of all before you go down that route. Me personally, I don't like to go down the batch route because you tend to miss stuff, and that I find that a lot with a lot of painters, that when you start painting models up and you're doing that batch amount of painting, you tend to find that as you're painting them, you'll notice a lot of painters will miss certain parts on the shoulder pads, or they'll miss some details, and it's a shame because, you know, they've done some awesome work on the rest of the model, and it's just those key little things that just absolutely ruin it for the rest of the model, which is an absolute shame. But look, that's what it is. So Andy, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. Really do appreciate it. Next tip I'm going to give, and that is your base colors, and I don't mean like as in like going with a blue or anything like that. I'm talking about your priming colors, because that is absolutely key and crucial. So I was speaking to one of my friends a couple of days ago, and Mikey was talking to me about he's going to be painting his Necron Warriors up, his power weapons, and what he was saying was when he was doing it, he was going to go black, white to orange, then put an orange over the top. But as I explained to him, that by doing that, by going with a black base, then doing a Xenoth highlight of a white, when you put the orange over the black, it's going to make that orange look poopy. It's not going to work at all.
Yeah,
so,
it turns a poo brown.
Yeah, and it's not. So it's something that you really want to avoid. That you've got to plan that well ahead before you even do it. So if you are going to do any form of painting straight up, what I would highly recommend you do is you go in with at least a grey primer. That's like, if anything you're going to do, go with a grey primer opposed to a black. You could go in with a white. White's a nice, vibrant white, background to start painting on. Putting paint onto the canvas. Depending on how you want your army to look. So if you want a nice bright yellow or a nice bright orange, greens, like a bright green, you'd go down, possibly down the white side. Or if you're looking for the more darker, grim type feel, then you'd go down with the darker greys. But the beautiful thing about going with a grey primer opposed to going with a black primer is when you do put those other colours on, it really does help make those other colours, like reds are a particular colour. When you apply red over a black, it makes it look horrible. It doesn't come out right. It's nasty. But if you put it over a grey colour, it makes that red more rich, it makes it more pop, more vibrant. And that's what you kind of want to go for. So planning your primers is really, really important. Again, depending on whether you want to go with airbrush or whether you want to go by paintbrush, that doesn't matter. It's either one. Like, I know there's a lot of painters out there will go from black and then build up from that with loads and loads of layers. That's absolutely cool. But tonight we're just talking about speed painting and how we get through our models as quick as we possibly can. Because let's face it, now the tournaments have changed. The way the tournaments are now changed, we are now looking upon that you need a minimum of a 3 color standard for your models, and that's crucial. Because like, if you turn up to a tournament, like for instance, if you turn up to Twisted Onslaught 4, you don't have a fully painted army, unfortunately you won't be able to play. It's not a case you're going to lose 10 points. It's going to be a case of, look, I'm really, really sorry, this event you have to have a fully painted army, and that's something that we have to put into play. And a lot of the tournaments out there will insist on that same thing. Like, I know there's some tournaments out there that don't give a monkeys. They just want to take money and they don't care what you put down on the table. That's absolutely fine. For us, we just want to make sure that, if the other person's made sure they've got a nice painted army, it'd be nice to make sure that other person's got a fully nicely painted army. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's like a little bit of a rant there, but that's what I do best. Go off topic and rant.
You've been on topic. Oh, sorry.
That's what I was just going to say. I thought that's the standard for most tournaments nowadays. It's just like a 3 standard colour minimum.
It should be, but some people, they don't bother. There's I saw pictures on Facebook where some guy decided that he was going to 3D print those what are they called? The Custodes. Do you remember when those Custodes tanks were absolutely broken and filthy? So he had one of those, and he just basically just printed it off and just stuck it together with elastic bands. Now, how lazy have you got to be to do that? But people do. That's the thing. People do it. Like, now look, let's be honest, Sean. You go to the same gaming club as myself. How many times have you been to the gaming club and someone hasn't bothered to paint their models?
Or even being fully built, so you play guess what if this is. Yeah.
Yeah, and how does that make you feel when you're playing that type of army?
Sometimes I feel like they could cheat on you a little bit, because sometimes they go, oh no, this guy had the storm shield or something along those lines, and you're just kind of like, it's not clear what's what.
So that's
especially when they're bases. I had one game where they just put bases down, and I was just like, you're really taking the mick now.
So this is where it's really important to make sure that, you know, it's nice to have those models up. So over the next week, as soon as I get some time off, I'm going to be going through. I'm going to do a couple of videos on how to prep your models, B, how to speed paint. I'm going to be doing my lunar wolves at some point, so I'm really eager and desperate to get those on the table. And of course, at some point, myself, I will be opening up the commission side as well. So I'll be joining Sean on doing some commission. It's only because I've got to pay, unfortunately, for my little girl to have her teeth done. She needs braces, so I need to earn some money. So I'm going to be opening up my services just to pay for that. But I'm not doing it yet. That's something I'll post up a little bit later on. That's if anyone's interested. So now I've had my little rant. We've talked about the gaming side. Let's now talk about something else. Let's talk about the what paints people use, or what people tend like to use, should we say? So Sean, what's your favourite colour? What's the paints that you have on your desk right now? What are the colours, or forget the colours, sorry. What are the main paints that you use? Who's your favourite brand?
At the moment, I'm mostly using Games Workshop stuff. That is simply because they are plug and play. The air paints especially, I don't even have to thin them, I just put them straight in. I'm a lazy person. I like to skip steps.
Okay, that is a schoolboy error. Wow. Sean. Oh, wow. Jesus. Okay, if you're listening to that, don't do that. You're an idiot. I was just going to say don't do that.
Okay, why?
So you're another person that said that, and it's like, no, don't. Yes, okay. So the game Air is designed to go straight into your airbrush. Granted, however, don't do it. You want to put a little bit of thinner in your brush first before you do that. That is silly, so silly. So Sean, I was expecting a little bit more from you on that.
Okay,
let me down.
No, I'm very much disagreeing with you here, actually, Darren. But you know,
try a little bit.
Have different opinions. So
that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So in the comments, we've got Andy's put down. He uses Vallejo model color and scale 75. Totally agree. Now, I'm going to let you into a little secret. Well, I'm going to let you see what I've got paint wise. By the magic of the camera, I'm going to show you what I've got. So that's one wall of shame of Games Workshop paints and Forge World paints.
Oh, I do miss those. Some of the old colours they used to do,
and then
especially
when
they first released.
Oh mate, and then on the other
released
side,
them for Horus Heresy.
That is all my Vallejo paints, and I've also got some scale colours in there as well. And I find that some of this, and by the way, that's just still a small collection of paints. I'm not gonna go down. I've actually got a big drawer of paints that I'm gonna keep hidden away, because it's kind of like I've got a bit of a thing for paints, if you couldn't tell already. So for myself, I love playing around with inks. Inks really does help your painting pop. It makes the colours more vibrant. It makes those colours stand out a hell of a lot more on the model. So it doesn't necessarily, there's not one brand I would recommend over another. So use Sean, what are you up to?
Nothing.
Very noisy.
I was literally getting my inks out. Yeah, I love the brown inks for some reason. That seems to be my favourite. Will be yellow.
So Roni is one of the colours that I use. Hopefully I said that right. And I also use the scale colour as well. Scale colour is probably the easiest ones to get hold of, and they've got a nice colourful range in there. But one thing I like about these ones, now I've got these from Hobbycraft, and I think they're about like £23 for 6 bottles. You get a lot more for your money, because like there's a hell of a lot more ink in it. I've had these for years, and it's some real nice vibrant colours. So as soon as you start adding them into like the yellows, or you start adding them into other stuff, they look absolutely friggin' awesome. So we've got another comment. So Steve, hi Darren, I've been listening for about 10 minutes, but doesn't what you said about priming suggest the best? So let me just make sure I got that right. It's about 10 minutes, but doesn't what you said about priming suggest the best being simply white? Yes and no. So white's not. It's not very often that I would start from a white primer. I normally go from a brown primer, or at the moment I tend to be using, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but I'm using a Israel sand, and that's like a brownie colour. It's okay. It's like it depends on the project you're working at the time. So with the Necrons, they're going to be coming up as silver anyway. So I actually went over them with a grey opposed to a black, and that's just to build those silvers up more, to make the silvers pop more. And I found that they work better on there. If you're going to do your Necrons and you're just going to dry brush that silver on, then potentially black would be your better colour to prime them with. So depending on yourself, I think if you're going to go for speed, airbrushing is the way forward. Or do you know what, you can even cheat and you can even go one further. Games Workshop do a silver space spray. You could just easily go through. Yeah, lead belcher. Just lead belcher the whole lot, and you just saved yourself so much time. One thing I don't really use a lot of washes. In fact, I hardly use any washes. I always find that sometimes they take it away. However, I'm going to be doing a video soon. I think I found a way of cheating on how to do pinpoint shading. So do you know, like when you've got the let me give you an example. Let's take this little fella here. But still, I can't even get the other camera up. So if you look upon this model, I know it's not greatly coloured, but once I spray paint this all up, I'm not sure what colours I'm going to go with them yet, but down the side, it's normally quite cool to have like some shading to separate the rims,
yeah,
and the thing. So I've got a tool that I ain't going to say what it is just yet, because I think it's going to make if this works, this is going to be so freaking cool, and this is going to be game changing. I was in Hobbycraft the other day and I saw it, and it's not meant for what it's meant for, something else. It's not meant for this, but if this works, this is going to be so frigging cool. Like, I'm hoping I'm going to be the first one to figure this one out as well, but I will share that soon, because if it works frigging out, it's going to be absolutely cool. So yeah, so going back to the primer, being simply white could work out for yourself, but it just depends on what type of feel you want from your models. Where if you want a real bright, vibrant colour, then white's a nice colour to start off with. Though it does depend on the colours. If I'm going to go, say yellow is a good example, I would actually base coat those models. Actually, I'd go with the Israel Sand, because that's like a brownie colour, and then go with Xenoth White, because then when you spray the yellows over it, it really does make those yellows pop, and you've got like a nice darker yellow opposed to going into like a yucky type yellow. So that's really cool. So comment wise, we've got Andy. I really want to give Tamiya a bash, and the Aplong range oil paints specifically for miniature painting. So do you know what, Andy? I'm torn between oil paints, and the reason being is this: once you've painted your model up and you've got that model to a lovely, awesome paint job, and you think, actually, do you know what, this is absolutely friggin' stunning. There's been so many damn times that I've painted that model up, put the, glossed it up, gone over the oils, and the oils sometimes can ruin your models. Plus, you've got that horrible bloody odour of, pardon my language, of the, depending what spirits you're using to thin down the oils. So, like if you're going to be using like a white spirit, it's very toxic. It's horrible smell. Yes, you can get the Sandor, Sodor. I can't remember what it's called. I've got some over there, but I'm not going to climb over at the moment. To break down the paint, and it's designed specifically for oils to be less odorous. But the only problem with oil painting, or when you're using oils to do pin washing and stuff like that, it takes ages to dry. I know if you go on like these painting courses, they're saying, yeah, just whack a varnish over the top. That's, you know, it'll be fine. Kind of disagree sometimes. So welcome, Scrivos. Thank you for joining us. Steve, yeah, please do, my friend. Hopefully, I've got 2 battle reports I'm editing up at the moment. I don't know if anyone's got a chance to watch any of our latest battle reports at the moment, but I've changed. I know this is going off topic a little bit, but the battle reports have completely changed the way we record them, the way we edit them. So there's a lot more goes into the editing time now. So at the moment, I'm currently on about 2.5 days to edit. If not, at the moment, this last one's about 3 days editing the battle report, which is absolutely bonkers. So I need to think of a smarter way of capturing that battle report to make it quicker and easier to edit. But that's my thing. I've got to figure out. And of course, I've got to try and make it entertaining. So if you guys watch it and you see something on there you like, we dislike, I'm not a sensitive soul. Drop me a private message, just say, look, yeah, really cool, I like that, but I didn't like that. I take everything. All feedback's always good. So where was it? I've gone off topic, and I've kind of got myself lost a bit.
You were talking about oil paints and
oil paints. That's it. Oil paints. So I think you can do some awesome. So with the oil paints, yes, you can do some really, really cool stuff. But I think you can also do some cooler stuff with just like the normal like washes. I know Vallejo do some really cool weathering powders. I think people don't use the powders to their best abilities. I was having a play with them the other day, and I was doing some like weathering effects with the powders. You can do some really cool stuff with that. So at some point, I will do some videos on the weathering side, because I think you can do some really awesome stuff. Hey, Frost and Fists, and I'm guessing this is Mephis. So thanks for joining us, my friend. Much appreciated. You guys are absolutely friggin' awesome as always. And of course, if anyone's watching this and haven't already subscribed to Frost and Frisk, please do me a favor and drop over. Just give him a little bit of support. We're desperately trying to get him up to 10,000 to 1,000 subs to help them on their way. So if you could do that, that'd be friggin' awesome. Sean, have you already done it?
Done what?
Subscribe to Frost and Fist.
No.
Do it now.
I'll do it. Well, Keeple's there, so
good.
In a bit.
Good. Do it now. So yeah, so oil paints, yes and no. Look, you can do some, but I just think it just takes. If you're speed painting, I don't think oil paints is where you want to be at. You want to stay away from the speed paint. If you want to go down to do, time's not an issue. You've only got one army. You want to go to, make it the best you can. Yes, oil paints, you could go down that route, but I think you can do some. There are other things that you could do to make your models look better without going down the oil paint side. It just depends on the type of effect you want, I suppose. So Andy's put in there, just picked up some AK Streaking Grime and Rust. It's enamel base and it looks good. Do you know what, Andy? I was trying to think of the other brand, and I've seen it, but I haven't used it yet. So at some point, I want to get my hands of it and give it a try and see how it fares out. So that'd be really cool. And then Scrivo's just put on there, just slap on the gloss non oil. Yep, we've seen your painting, Scrivo's.
Oh, come on. He's won an award for his painting, so give him some credit.
Oh, listen, I'm out there, I'm baiting him, and he's just about to bite onto it. Oh. No, he's not doing it. Not today. He's not biting today. So let's move on, because we have got a nice, busy night ahead of us. So, Dan, what paints do you use, my friend?
I use the Warhammer paints. I've been trying them for a while because I found them to be slightly crisper. There's slightly better finish of them, but I still also use the old GW paints as well because I find them to be quite a good starter, because I use them for trying to get the basing of the grey and all that, and then I work my way up, and I've been experimenting with them for a while. And when I test out for paint schemes and things like that, I like to have like test models. So if I have like a box of Chaos Space Marines, I end up using like 10 of the damn things to do the actual paint testing before I end up doing the army. There's like
Now, Dan,
half a dozen in there.
you're a little bit echoey, my friend. It's like you're talking down a drain pipe.
Ah, I thought I sorted that out.
By any chance, is your speakers on?
No, they shouldn't be.
I'll let you have a little figure out on that.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what you've done wrong. So Memphis has put on there. He likes to use the Vallejo weathering powders. Yeah, look, the Vallejo weathering powders is pretty darn good. And you know, as I say, I use a lot of the Forge Rod ones because I've just got loads that I brought. I never done nothing with them. So the next one. Now this is a big one. This is a big room divider. Airbrush or painting by hand. So paintbrush or airbrush.
Do I have to make a choice? Because I like using the airbrush for a lot of things, but some bits you just can't do with an airbrush. You probably disagree with me, but some bits you can and you can't. And I'm not a fan of masking taping a lot of things.
Look, I will go with you on that because you're right. There are some things you can do with a paintbrush you can't do with an airbrush, but in whole, I think that with an airbrush you can do a lot more than you can do with, you know, I find that I can do a lot more with the airbrush, or I can paint my words out. I can paint quicker with an airbrush than I can with a paintbrush. Dan, can you do me a favour? Just pop yourself on mute for a sec, mate.
Yeah, will do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Darren, where you can get so much of your stuff done with the airbrush. I would not be doing commission painting without an airbrush, personally, now, just because it's a time saver with a lot of things. It's amazing that.
So Andy's put on there both, and he's Frost and Frisk has put love my airbrush, and Andy's put it took me a while to get the airbrush, as you know, Dan, but it's changed my painting. Look, 100%. I think for me, as I said, I'm a big fan of the airbrush, and I find that I can do a lot more smoother transitions with an airbrush and a lot quicker transitions than with a paintbrush. Look, a paintbrush, if you've got the time, a paintbrush will always outwin an airbrush. On like vehicles, don't get me wrong, vehicles you always have to use an airbrush. I find you get a much better paint job using an airbrush than you do with a paintbrush. But for speed, an airbrush all the time, you could do so much painting so much quicker. Or what you could do, you know, if you don't have an airbrush, if you kind of got the knack with the spray paint, with the spray cans, what you could do is go over with a grey base coat first of all, and you can kind of pull off a Xenov highlight with the white primer out of a spray can. Now, if you're going to do that, I would strongly recommend that you practice first with some rubbish models, because when you're playing with aerosol cans, now look, I know I had a lot of stick when I said about I used the, you know, this type of primer post the aerosol cans. The reason why I use this is purely the fact that when you're using aerosol cans, I find that it 50-50 whether it will muck up, and that's not because of the aerosol can, it's just because of my environment, whether it's, you know, where it's too moist in the air, or there's loads of different things that can play around with it and affect the way that paint hits the model, and that's a shame because that's not really what you want. That's not what you want at all. And yeah, and look, if I'm gonna try win painting competitions, I would always go with a, you know, make sure my character. This is another thing. When you do your characters is where you're going to spend more time on. But if you're going to paint, you know, 40 Necron warriors, half the time they die. Or like if you're going to do Gene Stealer Cult, for instance, Gene Stealer Cult is a good example. I had Gibraltar coming up a couple of years ago, and it was when the Gene Stealers first dropped. I think I had a month to paint up a 2,000 point army of Gene Stealer Colts, and I managed to do that, and they look absolutely stunning. I got, you know, some nominations for it as well in Gibraltar. I managed to do that all within a month, and that's build, paint, and again, that's like very much planning on how I prep those up. And because I've done them with speed painting, I made sure that because the chest was white, I made sure the chest wasn't attached to the legs. I made sure the heads wasn't attached and the arms weren't attached. So then when I was painting them through, it meant that I could do all the airbrushing on the white, all the airbrushing on the heads, and you can just get them through quick. But I know I've got some videos I've got to put out there, so that's something I'm going to put out at some point and show you how to do heads using the airbrush. Look, I know there's loads and loads of videos out there, but I'm just going to show you how I do it. When I put painting guides up, it's not necessarily to, it's going to sound really bad, it's not really more to show yourselves how to do it, but it's more, I've got a terrible memory. So for me, it's a really good memory bank in the fact that there'll be a colour scheme that I will do and I will forget how I've done it. Good example, I done a shadow sword, an Imperial Guard shadow sword, and I had this awesome green, and I tried replicating it again on my Valkyries, and for the love of damn money, I could not replicate that green. For love of money, just couldn't do it, no matter what greens I played with or what, I just couldn't get that green again. So I ended up selling the shadow sword. Made some really good money on it as well, so I was well chuffed at what it sold for. But I was just absolutely frigging gutted that I'd just forgotten that colour scheme. And like, you know, a tip would be to make sure you write it down. That's, you know, have a little scrapbook, write down like colour schemes that you use. So if you've got a specific purple you use or a specific way, nothing more annoying than forgetting a colour scheme, but just write it down in the book. And the older you get, or the older I get, I seem to forget a lot more, which is a shame. But these video guides that I'm doing, I know I don't get massive great amounts of views, and I know I'm not some of these high-end painting channels where they get like billions of bloody views, but for me it's more of a visual painting guide, more for myself than anyone else, but it's cool to share it as well. Minotox and Kitty George, Lord of the Potatoes, that is Andy. That is Andy down to a T, and he's changing his name. So when you're on the so one more thing, so dudes, I've got a serious problem with speed painting, don't know how to do it. Hello Frost and Fist, by the way, and hi, yo to you all. Look, there will be as I said earlier on in the video, I will do some videos on talk you through speed painting and how to prep and how to get yourself up there. This is more of just a good discussion on it, and I'll show you like what I do in the videos. I'll show you how I prep myself and get myself there ready for it. So the next one up is when you go to competitions. So like when I go to tournaments, I'm not worried about getting first, second, third in the gaming side. What interests me more is trying to win the painting competitions. That's what I really go for these competitions for. I'm not worried about like where I fare in the competition, because I always find that if I'm bottom tables, I have more fun at the bottom than I do mid range. So, but then when you get to the top tables, it's a totally different game style anyway. And I like being at the bottom, but being at the bottom, it's nice to have some really nice painted army and using models that you don't tend to do well on the tournament, if that makes sense. Or shall I say that because the way the meta works, I tend to find that if I painted a nice army up, which was hot at the time I finished it off, that meta's changed and they've all of a sudden gone up in points, or they're just not as good as they used to be. So Dave's put, I've used 15 magnifying glasses and I think maybe is impeding my speed. Magnifying glasses, yeah, so that's a really interesting one. So with the magnifying glasses, I use two types. Well, there's three types you can do. There's ones that you can stick over your head, so I'm just trying to give a good example. So that's one that I'd use, and that's just a simple over, and as you're painting, it helps you out. The only problem I find with those is the more I use that, the stronger these glasses need to get. Because I wear glasses, the other one I find that really helps is these. I don't know if you can see that. They're not very expensive. They're like about £10-12 off Amazon. I know I say I know it's not expensive, but I know a lot of people don't have the same income as someone else. So I don't think they're expensive, but if you're on a budget, then yeah, okay, that could be expensive. The third option is you could get a light which has the magnifying glass in it. I don't know whether that speeds it up, but you're right. Painting with a magnifying glass will slow down your speed painting because you're kind of like fluffing around. If you do wear glasses like myself, I find that painting with these helps me speed up my thing. So all I'll do with that will just slide up like so, and I can just have it up, and I can just get through, and I can get through a lot quicker, and I'm not impeded by the rest of my vision. I have to set it off because that gives me a headache. So going back to the conversation I was saying, so when you're painting up your models and you're looking to get into the painting competition itself, what do you aim for, Sean? What is the main thing that you strive for to try and get your models being recognised?
I try and get them to what I would call standard, which is kind of like above minimum, so you got edge highlights and reflections and details like that added in. I'm not sure how else to really describe it. Maybe some battle damage, but half the time my battle damage on my own personal models is because I've made a mistake and I've turned it into battle damage.
No, that's a good little tip. So
work with your mistakes, yeah.
No, that's good. And at the end of the day, it is only paint, right? Dan, what do you do, my friend?
Well, I try and at least get him to like a tabletop standard, really, as Sean was saying, just to get him to that, do a bit of edge highlighting, and try and make him sort of be noticed, and sometimes even try some bright and different colour schemes.
Yeah, that's a really good little shout on that.
Because I had some tree men at one point, and I gave them like bright orange tree, like leaves and things like that, and on the brown it actually came out quite nice. People were coming over and commenting how bright it was, how nice it was. It sort of stood out, and actually got nominated for a couple of nominated painting from players I played.
It's good. So the interesting thing about that is I find that when I go to painting competitions or when I go to tournaments, there's been many times where I've spent a couple of days just painting up a specific character, and I put loads of details on, and all the models I put like writing on, and I do various like battle damage and stuff like that. And I find that the guys that are getting nominated for the painting competitions doesn't necessarily mean they haven't done those things. It will be, oh God, I don't want to say this, but I went to one. I was kind of a bit I was salty. Like, it was salty Darren time, and I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna say it. I done a friggin' awesome job. I think I done an awesome job on my models, and I was so impressed the way the Demon King popped out. Like, I've done all the colour transitions. The Bloodthirster was gorgeous. That Bloodthirster has been on TV in Gibraltar. I was so happy with it. Like, really excited and like what I'd done. And the tournament I went to, a friggin' Elder army won it, and it wasn't even painted nice. Like, half the details were missing, and all it was that he done some really outstanding were they outstanding? Yeah, they were nice. It was the bases, and he done a checkered stripes on it, and it was like, no, that's gonna be mine. And
I have a feeling I know which army you mean, and it's quite glossy.
Yes.
Very brightly coloured, yeah.
To be fair, that could be a lot of them, because I've seen a lot of Elder armies similar. But yeah, one specific one was just like, oh God, right, never mind. Okay, it is what it is. So what I took away from that was, like, when you do these things, it's always good to look upon what your competition is and then learn from that. Don't go away and just think, oh well, I could have done, but mine should have won. Go away from it and think, right, okay, so what was it about that army that made that army stand out more than mine? What was it that made that pop that mine didn't pop? And what I took away from that was, it was brightly coloured, just as you guys said already. So the bright colours, as people are walking past the gaming tables, the bright colours really make your army pop. So as someone's walking past, people see that, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, I haven't seen that before. That looks really cool. And it really works. So another good example, I've done a Tyranid army where I've converted all my Tyranids over to the alien style. So pretty much my inspiration on my Tyranids, if he's not going to take everything with him, based on this fella. See, I love the one thing I love about the Tyranids is I love the way the way the Xenomorphs. What I love about them is the way the heads are shaped, and I love all these. At some point, I will take some pictures and I'll post up on the Facebook group and my Instagram. But you know, I absolutely love all this. So my gene stealers, I pretty much redesigned the way they were. So most of them didn't have 4 arms; they just have 2 arms. I gave them that nice tail to go on the gene stealers as well, which normally gene stealers don't have. I made sure I green stuffed that little bit on the end. It took me months to do it, and I went for a black scheme. So it was more the conversion side that, for me, that made that army pop. So the painting wise, you know, I didn't go too much into town on the painting. It was about getting those done. The time was more on the conversion work. But what I found from that is I've been to Warhammer World a couple of times, and it's managed to get into the glass cabinet. So the GW staff walking around, they've noticed the conversion work. I had to prove to them that it was green stuff and not a third party, because Games Workshop can be quite funny on if you go up to their events with not their products. They get a bit upset about that. Totally get it. You know, that's absolutely fine. So I had to prove to them that. I had to show them all my work, all my progress, what I'd done, and how I green stuffed these gene stealers up, and how I converted all the heads. But it was cool because it was, you know, I was well happy and pleased the way that turned out. It was freaking awesome. So that side, it made that stand out. But when it got into the cabinet, because you then had other arms, that's when you get into the cabinet, that's when people are actually going to start looking upon the detail. That's when they can see the detail more closely because it's in the bright lights. And that's kind of where it let me down, was more on that side. But I have been up to Warhammer World, and I have seen armies that have won the painting competition, and it's not because they've been nicely painted, it's because they've done some crazy ass conversions. Now, I love conversions. I love when people do conversions, but what I don't love is when they make a conversion, it doesn't look like what it's meant to be. So what's a good example, Darren? A good example would be,
without naming names.
I'm trying to give. Yeah, if I say this one, it would give it away on who it is and what it is they've done. God, back in my gaming days, where I was a gaming little twat. Oh, said the wrong word there. I made so this is, I'm talking from experience here. So I hated the way the Defiler looked. I didn't like that big bulky bit out there. And it was back in the days when so I converted my Defiler to have to be more lower down, and I made it more like the Scorpion type thing, apart from it didn't have the tail because I couldn't afford the parts. But back in those days, you measured from the weapon. So as a gamey little such and such, I put the flamers in the fists, so then I could move it forward, so I could get that an inch or 2 extra from the thing. And do you know what? I don't use it anymore, and it was a bit of a gamey thing I did. But then I think in those days it was the people I used to hang around with more that made me that type of player, if that makes sense. Play people that have these conversions, and the conversions don't look like what they should be, and that's the part that's no longer cool anymore.
It's a shame because you used to see quite a few good conversions at the old GW tournaments. I mean, I think it was even White Dwarf, you know, saying about the Defiler. Somebody took 2 Defiler kits and turned it into, because it looks so cool.
So just looking into the comments, so Scribos put, painting isn't the only maker for it. Conversions are considered too, right? 100%. Frost and Frisk, or should I say Memphis, I like winning that intent. Whenever I'm painting competitions, I make up for painting.